I mean, the best way that you can really start to build an eye for what we're talking about, how to balance that beauty and function, is to, think of how you use the space. What do you do in the space? Like, is it a bedroom? What's the primary goal? Is it a kitchen? And is it, are there pain points within that function?
One of the ways to look at your kitchen and the functionality is think of that cooking triangle.
Yeah,
you've got the stove, you've got the fridge, and you've got the sink.
Mm-hmm.
And how are those three laid out in relation to each other? And is it easy to move between them and get what you need, or even some of the storage for spices or things like that? Like, is it laid out for functional use? Because you can make the cabinets pretty. You can make a great, a good countertop. But if it's not laid out to where it's functional as well, it becomes a pain point.
When most people think about design, they think it's just like a decoration, a pretty sofa. But in actuality, design done right is an investment.
Exactly. When you've got good design, it translates with your prospective buyers, your prospective renters, and it attracts more people and oftentimes better qualified people. And that's what's bringing you into that return on design.
True. So on today's episode, we are going to be sharing with you how design can be your silent salesperson. When it comes to real estate, beauty and function really go hand in hand. And you've got to view it from the lens of how to balance them, where they are complementing each other and they're working together. If you focus too much on beauty and you overlook function, you can have a really pretty space that nobody seems to understand how to live in it. And that's going to hurt your bottom line. And in the same hand, you can be so hyper-focused on function, but you're lacking the beauty. And, people expect a level of beauty, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you want a space that looks beautiful, but you also want it to work with you and work in your life. I mean, we've seen spaces, like you said, that they look beautiful, but you're afraid to go into it. Why? It's cold. You don't want to mess something up. Like, it's like, oh, that's just to look at. That's just a pretty.
It becomes unlivable.
Then it becomes unlivable.
Or it's too stressful for people to actually, we see that often.
And then you've also seen those where it's like, we did everything based on pure function, and it's like, this doesn't go with that, and this piece is just worn out. But you know what? Hey, the kids jump on it, and so whatever, Yeah. But we can still make it nice, and we can have beautiful things that function together. I mean, there is a place where beauty and function coexist, and that's what makes the design, and especially return on design, work so well together.
Yes. I mean, we have a client, we'll just call the client Sam for the sake of our story. But they did a bathroom renovation, and they were focused more on beauty than function. And now it's a pain point in their life where it's just not the right functional space. It's not that they don't find it beautiful, but it's just not working for them day in and day out. So now we have to reevaluate, that function aspect and make sure we're maximizing their square footage and making it an enjoyable place for them to live in.
Yeah.
So to be specific, this bathroom it was renovated to kind of bring the design up, make it more aesthetically appealing, update it, if you will. And there's a lot of wasted square footage. And there's a lack of storage. There's a lack of some functionality on just some personal preferences. And, it wasn't balanced well with the beauty and function. It was focused only on beauty and not really optimizing the space for function and livability. And
there have been a couple, if I think of some other examples of that, there have been some spaces that we've walked into, like, there was kind of this bonus room, and it's like, oh, we're going to do schoolwork and studying in here. But after a while, everything is just piled up. Everything just is stacked upon, you've got all the toys over here plus schoolwork stuff. And it's like, wait, we can actually lay this out. And it's not that it's, just messy. It's just not laid out properly so that it can have the functionality for everything they wanted to do, but yet still allow it to be a beautiful space in and of itself.
Yeah. And we've also seen a handful of properties that, you can tell the original design and architectural plan was like very thought out, and it is a functional space, but it's lacking that current aesthetic and the beauty that people want. And so those houses tend to not move as fast on the market. You're not getting that top dollar. So it's kind of lopsided. I don't know that I see a ton of new construction that lacks the beauty, but definitely a lot that lacks function. I mean, we see it all the time in just wasted square footage spaces or pockets within spaces that don't make sense. Nobody knows what to do with them. They don't know how to make it a livable space. That's something we see continually.
Yeah, sometimes that kind of that entryway, if we would have intentionally placed a mud bench here or something like that, now all the backpacks and things like that from school aren't piled on the kitchen island.
Yeah. And most of our design clients, the ones that really work with us, it's not just about beauty for them. It is a desire.
Like, I want beauty. I want function. I want style.
And they're usually always thinking a lot about how they're going to experience the space. They may not understand that as we get started, but we uncover that through conversation and really identifying goals. And ultimately, people care more about that. The beauty is sort of like the sprinkles on top that it's a little easier to obtain. But if it's functionally not right, or their family's not cohesively using the space together, that's usually a huge pain point for people. Yes. And that is a huge misconception about interior design in general is, when you hear interior design or you look at design trends, it's so focused on beauty and aesthetic. But interior design is really about function, form, use of space, and being able to collaborate that beauty. I don't like collaborate. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's like the cohesion of
that execution all together. And if you're only focused on beauty, and the way something looks, you're probably not going to get your full return because you're likely going to overlook something.
So, all right. So this is exactly what, we mean by where, the design and function and beauty coming together. That is a silent salesperson, because when somebody walks into a space that has been intentionally laid out and it's got great functionality, it's got great appeal, like you can see the beauty, you can see the thought process of what's in there. You can actually see how you walk in and how to use a space, how it could be used. And when you're looking at trying to sell a place, your potential buyer or even a renter or whomever it is can see how they would be in that space.
Yeah, like the rehab we did, that had these unfinished architectural changes, or really somebody had renovated the house before, added an extension, but they didn't really correct or make sense of old architectural details. And it was a huge pain point where people are like, what do I do with this? Like, oh, I like the layout of the house, or, oh, I like, fill in the blank, whatever you like. But that's such a pain point for people. It can feel so overwhelming that they will walk to the next house. Like, that one's just too much.
If you're trying to flip a house or even rent it, if people can't see how to use that space, more times than not, it's going to turn them off from the space in the house.
That's why home staging is such a valuable tool, specifically when you're, trying to sell. a house.
Or yeah. If you're trying to stage one that you've renovated or whatnot, or even just the way that you have your home laid out if you're trying to sell your own personal home.
True. I mean, the best way that you can really start to build an eye for what we're talking about, how to balance that beauty and function, is to, think of how you use the space. What do you do in the space? Like, is it a bedroom? What's the primary goal? Is it a kitchen? And is it, are there pain points within that function, or things that maybe don't seem to make sense that you could utilize design in a different way to kind of
I mean, for example, in the kitchen, the thing that, or one of the ways to look at your kitchen and the functionality is that, think of that cooking triangle. You've got the stove, you've got the fridge, and you've got the sink.
Mm-hmm.
And how are those three laid out in relation to each other? And is it easy to move between them and get what you need? Or even some of the storage for spices or things like that? Like, is it laid out for functional use? Because you can make the cabinets pretty. You can make a great, a good countertop. But if it's not laid out to where it's functional as well, it becomes a pain point.
I mean, that's a good example, and bad form example of, something like that would be maybe your primary fridge is like in your pantry or in your laundry, or you're having to if you're having to go into a different space completely to be able to complete the task you have in that space, then you're probably missing some level of functionality. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it's very common to see that unless somebody's maybe done a renovation or you have a much older home.
I was going to say the older homes. I've seen it a lot more in like homes that are very old that really probably haven't been renovated in 40 years. And they used
to entertain differently. They would have a help, sometimes almost a secondary kitchen, mm-hmm. where prep happened and then entertaining was kind of in a different space. And now, modern Western culture is like the kitchen is the focal point of entertainment in the home. And you don't really have a whole secondary, unless it's a very intentional kind of butler's nook or oversized pantry. Those are becoming popular, where you have, a walk-in pantry that also houses cold food or product of sorts, like, vegetable and fruit. Walk-in, almost like a walk-in cellar, or like a beverage fridge. Some people want the large scale beverage fridges, and then they'll put that in a pantry or something. But like your day-to-day cooking essentials, you should be
able to get to within a couple steps.
That room. Yeah.
Really.
But that is a great example too of why, when you're balancing that beauty and function, you can't just fall victim to chasing design trends all the time, because trends come and go. Sometimes, it might last 5 years, 10, sometimes it only lasts like 1 year, and you put a ton of money in thinking you're updating your space. And actually I see that a lot with contractors or people doing renovations who don't know design. They're literally just doing what the trend is. And it's not always the most effective.
Or sometimes even trying to force that trend into a space.
Yes. Like the layout doesn't
the layout doesn't lend to that specific trendy piece, so to speak.
Like the open concept is a great example of that, where they're like, oh, let's just knock down all the walls and give it a huge open concept. And you're like,
well, now sometimes there's no division to the space, and you don't know how to lay something out.
Which is really difficult for people to be able to define space that's very open without having a wall or a partition of some sort, which is one thing designers are good at, is using furniture to create setting and structure, so that an open concept can feel defined and intentional still without having, a wall. You have to like
That's
define the space with the furniture and
Yeah.
still create intentional spaces within the space. But one thing I get a lot of feedback for that people don't you don't know until you live in the space or you experience it real time is it can be very loud. Noise control can be a huge problem in open concept spaces. And, we correct that a lot by using different materials to help, absorb sound and like soften echo. And there's different ways you can kind of mitigate after. But yeah, you might like the look of this fully open concept and it works great for some people. And for some people, it's too chaotic all the time, like loud constantly.
And then, and to that point too, it's also the way that you have something laid out. Somebody's got to be able to walk in and see it. If it's just a blank room, it can feel very overwhelming to somebody. Or like, how do you make sense of a space? And sometimes, the open concept, since we're using that example here a lot, it can be a very great and designed very well, but it can also be too much. We've seen those where it's like, wait, I've basically got 4 rooms trying to be one. And it is very difficult to see how to lay that out, even when you understand dividing spaces with furniture and things like that. It can still be very difficult. And so, yes, you can have the open concept if that's something you like, but you got to make sure it's not too much of it too.
Yes. So even in that open concept idea, like the space has to be anchored by function. And when you anchor it functionally, the beauty comes a lot easier.
Yeah, that's true. It's easier to make it prettier when you understand how to use it and what it is. All right, so let's circle back to this property we were talking about with Sam, and the bathroom that was purely for beauty and not really had any function. What would you recommend to do to make sure that, yes, we get the beauty, but we also have that function? And how does that kind of lay out and look?
So if I remember correctly, this client during the renovation had basically changed the square footage of the bathroom without changing any walls. So I think it was an existing closet or something where they relocated for I'm trying to think of the politically correct word. Water closet. It's called a water closet. Like
toilet.
The toilet is.
The crapper. The poo. The water closet. We're not in England. It's not a water closet.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So they knew they wanted, I think it was, things can snowball really easy in design. Anytime you start renovating something, like you might be thinking, oh, I want a bigger vanity. And then the next idea is, okay, well, let's move this over, rip out the old, and we'll move this closet down, or whatever the example was. I think in this situation, it was, we're going to relocate the toilet so that we have a bigger vanity. And so in the effort of moving that toilet, they didn't think about how much square footage was now going to be the new water closet. And it's a huge waste of space. I mean, you don't need a ton of space when you're going to the bathroom, right? It's a very intentional thing that you're doing. So
I don't need a toilet room that's the size of my bedroom. Let's just face it.
I mean, some people have them, but you definitely don't need it. Not functional. So,
and part of the problem with it too is that's the only thing in there.
Exactly.
It's a giant room with a toilet.
Yep. So I think it was originally a closet.
I believe that was originally, or part of a closet. Yeah.
Something. I don't recall. But now they've hired us to fix it. Because it's just,
They would change it to then they hired us.
Oh. Do what?
Then they hired us. Change that back so that we can edit it to not.
Okay, say it again. I can't hear you.
So that then they hired us.
Oh. So then they hired us, and we are going to fix it. But I still don't think I answered the question. Yes. So the plan now is we have to relocate the toilet again. and make that room smaller. We're going to essentially cut it in half and use that square footage as an intentional function piece of the closet to meet some goals that they have, how they want to use the space. What I'm trying to get at is how do you avoid that initially? Because I think it can get glossed over, especially when you're sometimes like you'll be real time rolling in the construction process, and then your contractor might say, "Hey, what do you want to do about this?" And you kind of have to make a decision on the fly. And that's how things typically can get overlooked, where you're like, "Oh, I don't know, just make it just put the toilet in there or whatever." And then $30,000 later, after you finish the whole bathroom, we're going to be ripping up a portion of it because it was never intentionally like, wait, well, let's think about the functionality.
Yeah.
And what is that really going to do for our space? Like, yeah, it's not like trying to identify functionality for a space is not that complicated. We might try to overcomplicate it, but unless you're, doing something commercially, that's like a different scenario. But for the average residential environment, function should not be that difficult to identify. It's truly like, what do you want this space to be? How are you going to live in it?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the goals you have? So
also, does it make sense in the function layout of the space?
And that determining does it make sense or not is going to be almost like the hook of, okay, well, what do I do? Because, we see this frequently where we serve clients and their families are growing. So, like the kids are maturing, I guess. Not that they're necessarily having more kids, but, they are not little kids anymore. They're teenagers now. And so what they wanted to do in that space then is not what they want to do now. And so the function may not lend to that. And we have to redesign the whole space. But we don't know how to design it until we understand what's the goal for the room. Like, what do you really want to do in here? And then, yes, then
we can functionally lay it out to accomplish those goals.
Yeah. And make sure it makes sense with the architecture, with, the aesthetics of the existing portions of the space and all of that. Yeah. I mean, once you get all of those functionality pieces, beauty comes a lot easier. And, beauty is subjective. Like what one person thinks is beautiful, another person doesn't. So you can't lead with the beauty piece unless like really specifically, who that's going to serve. So I guess primary takeaway is just remember, design is not just an expense. You can't think of it through the lens of an expense. When it's done correctly, it's an investment. And, when you approach it that way, you're going to get a return. You need to be expecting a return. So.
And remember that the design, yes, is not just an expense, but that design helps you to feel a way. It creates that experience. It allows people to see, the functions, the beauty, and that's ultimately what's going to help drive that return.
Right. And remember, return on design is not limited to financial return. Like there's an experiential return and an emotional return. And function and beauty are going to affect, how you feel emotionally in the space, how you experience the space. And of course, bottom line, dollar. I don't know.
Yeah. So,
the money matters, but I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you were fine, but so if this episode's helped you and you want to continue following us, please like, subscribe, follow along with us as we continue to share insights from jobs that we've worked, things we've seen, things we've learned along the way in our journey, and continue to tune in with us.
So if this whole conversation has sparked like some very specific questions in your life, in your situation, reach out to us. You can leave us a comment on social media, and we'd be happy to engage and try to point you in the right direction and give you some answers that might help you.
See you next time.
See you next time.